Thank you, Melanie. Welcome to Bellingham Unitarian Fellowship, where all who come in a spirit of goodwill are gladly received. I'm Jeff Copeland, and I am pleased to be your celebrant this morning. My wife Liz and I are longtime Unitarian Universalists, and among our previous congregations was North Lake UU Church in the far-off land of Kirkland. We've been members here for 5 years. Today, even though he's back from sabbatical, our minister Paul Beckel is not in the pulpit. Instead, we welcome Madeline McNeil. Madeline combines opera training with breathing techniques, yoga, and meditation to investigate our body's relationship to the soul. I'm fascinated to hear what we're going to explore with her today. A couple of announcements, because there are always a couple of announcements. After today's service at noon, we will have our annual congregational meeting, both here in the sanctuary and on Zoom. For those of you here, run downstairs, grab a snack and a cup of coffee, and be back up here for noon so we can get a quorum. There will not be the usual post-service coffee gathering on Zoom. I apologize for that, but we need to get set up for the Zoom portion of the meeting. For those of you on Zoom, the congregational meeting will be on the same Zoom channel as this service. One other announcement that I want to bring to your attention, the Welcome Aboard the Voyage of Beloved Community session, which was going to be here in the sanctuary after service next week, will now be completely online. Please RSVP to Kathy, admin@buff.org, to let her know you're coming for that. The remaining concise and thorough announcements are on the back of your order of service. And if you're online, you can find the order of service at buff.org. Now, please turn off your cell phones, relax into the spirit of worship as Madeline and Melanie provide our prelude.
Mi piace Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Some of you remember I used to attend Buff and sing in the choir probably 10 years ago or so, maybe more. It really is a beautiful space, and it is really my pleasure to be here and to share things that I have developed, combining, like Jeff said, this opera training with breath modalities like yoga and meditation to investigate the breath musculature primarily, or I also call it the core muscles of the torso, neck, and head, as the landscape for exploring philosophical questions like the embodied soul, which is quite a topic that I chose for today. I'd like to begin with some awareness exercise. And it begins with the breath. And I'll get into this a little bit more, but I'd like to explain just briefly the movement of the breath, because often we'll think about the lungs when we think about breathing. And I really think about muscles, the muscles that move the breath. If you remember some of those bellows that stoke the fire, I think of the breath musculature as creating that vacuum inside the bellows, and then the air just goes in. So the muscles are like a pump. And so this is what they look like. When we breathe in, there's some opening in the mouth. There's a soft palate that's a dome-shaped muscle at the back of the top molars. Might go up a little bit, especially if you yawn. The larynx goes low. The ribs go out. There are these intercostal muscles. The belly goes out, the back a bit. And then there's this pelvic floor. It's this bowl-shaped muscle underneath the pelvis that goes down. There's also something called the diaphragm, which I'm sure you've heard about. It's this parachute-shaped muscle underneath the lungs, and the lungs are attached to it, and the lungs go down when the diaphragm goes down. So it's all of these muscles in concert creating this breath movement. So I'd like to invite you to, as you're comfortable, to initiate a very gentle yawn, which you can start at the back of the top of the mouth with a soft palate. And you will initiate it. And then there's expansive movement that's happening from head to pelvis. Sometimes it'll trigger the full yawn. It'll be this reflexive contraction. You'll be like, oh. Yes. Thank you. And now I'd like to do that again, but instead of the full yawn, I want to do something called a half yawn, which is still from head to pelvis, this head to pelvis movement, but half stretch. So not the full stretch, but about the half stretch. And what we're going to do is inhale and then exhale on an ah. So it'll sound like this. Ah, like that. We do that together? Ah, that's such a beautiful sound. It really is a gorgeous sound. I'd like to do that again, and this time we will tone on ah. We'll use this tone, ah. So we'll inhale, head to pelvis, ah. Beautiful. Do that 2 more times. Inhale, head to pelvis. One more time, head to pelvis. It's beautiful. So the beauty of that sound is prepared with this breath movement that happens from head to pelvis. So with that in mind, we're going to sing together number 203, All Creatures of the Earth and Sky. And there's an Alleluia in this song, and I'd like you to think about preparing that Alleluia with this breath that we just did together, the head to pelvis breath.
Those of you who know me probably realize I'm an unapologetic nerd. I spent the first 40-something years of my life largely existing above my neck. When I was a teenager, I thought that the best fun was math homework, which didn't make me really friendly with the football players in my high school. I credit my wife with teaching me to think with my heart instead of my head, my children with finally teaching me how to play, and my time in Unitarian congregations with the ability to, at all, honor the soul. But now, after a number of decades on this planet, I'm finally, somewhat reluctantly, coming to understand that I have a physical presence too. It's made all clearer by the creaks and groans and pops and snaps of advancing middle age. I mean, I lived a long time without realizing that I actually had core muscles. And who the hell thought of knees anyway? But that continuing education is why I am pleased today that Madeline is here and to listen to her thoughts on the body and the soul and breathing and yoga and how those all interact. 30 years ago, if you had mentioned I sing the body of electric, I would have quoted you from a Ray Bradbury short story. But I now understand that there's another work by the same name that comes a little earlier. And as Madeline lights the chalice, I will read you a stanza from that poem. Was it doubted that those who corrupt their own bodies conceal themselves? And if those who defile the living are as bad as they who defile the dead? And if the body does not do fully as much as the soul, and if the body were not the soul, what is the soul? Please join me in reciting our covenant. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service gives it life. Celebrating our diversity and joined by a quest for truth, we work for peace and honor all creation. This is our covenant.
thank you so much. That was beautiful. I wanted to clap. Okay, here we go. The embodied soul. So I investigate the soul and other processes like emotion, even mental experiences, again, utilizing my vocal training, which, who knew you could do something like that? And it is really a synthesis with my vocal training, some body modalities like yoga, like meditation, also some massage, to investigate these experiences as physical processes. It's very interesting. And so I'd like to lead you through, or to guide you through this process as I do it. And we'll participate a little bit together as I do. I'll start nice and soft with one experience, an experience that I'm sure many of you may enjoy, which is walking outside in nature. Sometimes when I'm walking outside in nature, and I'm surrounded by the vastness and beauty and complexity, I move into a state of awe or wonder. Perhaps you might feel that also. It's a felt inner state. So what is happening to create that experience? And I'd like to begin exploring that with a very simple and improvised chant on awe. How does that expression of awe relate to being in a state of wonder? I'm going to move through this breath anatomy again. I did it a little bit before, but just a little reminder, especially as a singer, this is something I've become very familiar with. With every breath, there's an internal movement, and that movement is a bit in the mouth, there's a bit of a raise in the soft palate, there's a lowering of the larynx, there's an expansion of the ribs, there's muscles in between the ribs. The diaphragm, this parachute-shaped muscle, goes down. The abdominals and some of the back and side muscles go out, and then all the way down here, the pelvic floor expands just a little bit. And for me, I've learned that some of these muscles I can feel a little better than others. I can feel the abdominals pretty well. I can feel my ribs muscles pretty well. I can't really feel my diaphragm very well, except when it's tense, or if I hold my breath. I can feel that, but I can't really feel the detailed movement of my diaphragm. And I can't really feel the detailed movement of my pelvic floor, though I can also feel if I am tense there also. So primarily, I'm feeling muscles here, and I'm feeling muscles in my neck and in my head. But I know that they all move in concert in order for me to breathe every moment of my life, and especially when I sing. I'm very aware of this concert of movement. So as I'm walking in nature, I'd like you to imagine the natural world around you and kind of playfully, like a child, just wanting to touch it with your arms and legs, but it's everywhere. So that's surrounding you. You don't even know where to start. And then I would like you to think internally about the core muscles moving in a way to do the same thing, to move out, to touch the outer world, within their ability to move. So the ability of the movements of these muscles in this expansive pose is an expansive breath. Soft palate high, larynx low, ribs expanded, abdominals expanded, pelvic floor expanded. Wow. And that's what comes out. We have these words like, ah, wow. And we see it very much in the face. And we identify these emotions very much in the face. But internally, as a singer especially, I've just learned that, oh no, it's not just in the face. This is a full body movement. It's going on from head to pelvis. So it's not just a wow in the head, it's a wow all the way, all the way down. So I'm going to give another chant. With that in mind, you can think about that. Head to pelvis, inhale, and an exhale. As if I'm in nature, surrounded by beauty. I'm preparing the breath with this expansive movement, but I still have to release it. I can't stay in the expansive pose the entire time. It has to go out. But the preparation allows for this beautiful sound, this very open, calm sound to happen, especially if I'm trusting of my environment and feeling calm. This is an expression that matches my relationship in the moment to the environment, to nature, or to being here. So why? Why? What happened so that we move into these poses in the first place? Well, these core muscles are like any muscle. They need to move, and they need to feel, and they also enjoy a good stretch every once in a while. They're moving every moment of our lives. And not just for breathing, they're moving into poses of emotion, because there's a lot of emotions that are required to live. We might get sad, we might get mad, we might feel joy, we might laugh, we might cry, and in all of those experiences, the core muscles, I would say, are moving, they're exercising. So it's good to give them a stretch every once in a while. And a yawn, I think, stretches the core muscles. Yes, now everybody's yawning. Can't go to sleep yet. The yawn does that, but also a state of awe or a state of wonder promotes a nice stretching movement of the core, which is lovely. What a lovely gift of the body to be able to move into a stretching pose and to stretch out these muscles that we need to breathe. I'm going to give one more little chant, and then I would like us all, actually let's just move into us all doing. At the beginning, we went through the expansive inhale, and then we exhaled on an ah. So I'd like to do that together again. And the tone will be ah. So we'll inhale together, head to pelvis. Ah. And again. Ah. Expand, expand, expand. Wonderful. When I was learning to sing opera, there was a lot of awing in the practice room. There were a lot of other vowels too, but ah was one of the basic vowel sounds, and I would do things like and it's fun, it's a good time. It heard me. Oop, I'm sorry. That was too close. Wanted to join. So this pose on awe, these training exercises, were training me to feel from head to pelvis in the way that we are just doing now. It's teaching me a lot of refinement of these muscles, how to do all of this. And eventually, I began to think about emotional states in terms of these muscles. Because I'd been trained to do it, I was like, oh, well, this is the pose for this. And this is the pose for this. And then I would start to blend it with my technique. So I would have emotional pose plus technique pose, which created a very emotional sound. Another thing that vocal training, and it doesn't have to be opera. Many different kinds of singing. They're all wonderful. And they all do this kind of training work. Something also that singing training taught me was that it exposed places where I was tense. So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to refine my instrument so that I could very clearly express myself. So singing can reveal tension. And sometimes I wonder if this is maybe a small part, it definitely was for me, why singing can feel inhibited to do it, because it tells truths. Like, where am I tense? I'm tense somewhere. You don't really know sometimes. So I'd like to get into tension for a second. What is tension? I also do some massage. I do massage therapy. So I will work on people, and I think about their muscles. I think about knots, their constrictions in these muscles. What that means is that you could think of these muscles like long fibers, like slinkies, like these slinkies. The muscle fibers, they get closer together when they contract, and they get further apart when they expand. And that's how our muscles work. Closer together, contracting, further apart, expanding. Sometimes, if we overwork or overstress, the muscles will get close together, and through that overwork, they'll just stay there. And they might accumulate some waste product, or they might just get really bunched in there. So as a massage person, I will go in and press on them and release them and bring circulation back into the area so that they have now the full range of movement. They can stretch and they can contract. They can do both. They're not just in this state of contraction. Now, thinking about the core muscles as also being able to have tension, I think about, okay, well, what could I do to release some of this tension? And there are ways that I've done this on myself as I've tried to release my instrument. I've worked on my abdominals. I've worked on my neck muscles. I've worked on my jaw muscles. You can do that. There's some of these muscles that are kind of like deep in there. This diaphragm is like from front to back, and it goes up and down. It's an important muscle. So then I think, okay, well, what are some of the mechanisms of the body to try and release if the diaphragm is tense? And then I think, laughing. Ha 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 ha. There's some shaking going on in there, or crying. Right? It's bringing in this movement, and there's a lot of heat, and there are hormone things that happen. It's flushing out these very essential muscles that we, again, use for every breath, for our emotional expressions, for speaking. So that's lovely that we have all of these different ways of moving in order to maintain the health of these core muscles. I'm going to go back to singing and the idea of being soulful. the soulful singing. Another thing I've noticed, there are these reflexes that are happening in the core. This is an interesting thing. So like, for example, if I cough, I'll do it like this. Often our irritation is in the throat, but it triggers this full core response. It's not just in the throat that's contracting. The belly will contract. The pelvic floor will contract. Or when I sneeze, it's a full core thing, but the initiation is in, sometimes you just get something in your nose and you're like, but you're not like, choo. You're like, right? It's a full core response, and it's coordinated by these reflex mechanisms in the core. So here's another little game I play with myself if I'm going to express emotionally. I'm going to ask you to move your attention into your belly, into your gut, and reflect on a process of a moan. And so I'm going to actually contract my gut, my abdominal muscles, and allow the reflexes to structure a sound to come out. I'm going to do it right now. Yes. You want to try it? It's kind of fun. All right, we're all behind masks. You don't need to be embarrassed. You can contract in the gut and just make a moany sound. Ready? And go. Oh, that's such a good moan. That's a good moan. So when I sing, if there's an emotion of moan to the song, and I blend it with my technique, but interestingly, this moan, it comes from a place of vulnerability. It comes from a place of openness. The world will move into us in ways and create these internal contractions, these reflex contractions, and then we can shape it in response. We can express it back out. Just such a beautiful reason for singing and vocal training and arts training to be in our lives, because we learn to shape. We learn to shape these emotional movements that are natural to our lives and necessary. We're going to be moving in and out of different states all our lives, and singing allows us to feel it and to shape it. I'd like to take a moment to share with you then my conceptualization of spirituality. I take it from the word spiritus, which means to breathe in Latin. So for me, breath movement is a foundation of my spiritual practice, which I developed by learning to sing, as well as learning to feel the sensations of the body and feel these systems of internal movement, and to think about these movements in terms of muscles. Who'd have thought? Muscles. Often we think of muscles as kind of like the workhorses of the body or the machinery of the body, and for me wow, they deserve so much care and cultivation. They're very precious. And so I'd like to touch a little bit on some ideas of the soul that come to mind as I think in these ways. So if I think of soulful expression in terms of muscles, the implication is that muscles are temporary. For me, a spirituality based on spiritus, which means to breathe, acknowledges mortality, and it acknowledges limits. These muscles have a limited range of motion. There's only so long that I can hold a pose of awe. There's only so long, as I see it, that I can hold a pose of love. And that's okay. Because knowing I have limits and knowing what the parameters are, I can build skills. I think it's an important part of skill building to understand what the parameters are, what I can do, what I can't do, and then within those limits, beautiful things are possible. Currently, in our culture, I often see there being strong delineations between soul and body. Often, I'll notice that certain poses or emotions or soulful experiences are thought to have infinite properties, whereas the body is mortal and finite. So, for example, if I think that love, my expression of love, is infinite, I might move to express love all the time. If it's infinite, I should just be able to do it all the time, all the time. But that could lead to overexertion. It could lead to breaking of boundaries for the health of the body. Again, I think of these experiences as body movements. So I will move into love, and I might move out of love. And I might move into awe and move out of awe. And it becomes more of a song of life. Instead of one grand expression all the time, it's a series of expressions. The happy and the sad, and the mad and the awe. And it becomes a beautiful song. I'm going to leave you with a couple more thoughts. One thing, it's fun. This is a fun way to think about these experiences because I can move and sing while I'm doing it. It also creates, for me, a value system for the arts, for music, for singing. Because for me, investigating some of these things with vocal training creates insights into these experiences. Also, as I look out to the issues that we face, the bigger issues, like climate change, which is an issue of limits, I think about how if we could think about ourselves as having limits, but being able to create beauty within those limits, I can then look out at the world and think of the world and our environment as also having limits. It creates an internal framework for thinking about the world and thinking about our fragile and vulnerable interactions with the world and nature. Thank you for listening to these thoughts and ideas. Thank you for participating. I hope that as you move through the world, you can think a little bit more about this space in here. Thank you.
I'm struck by how much more comfortable and relaxed you were standing up here than I am. It's a little frightening. You have clearly thought about this more than I have. Thank you very much. Once a month, when we pass the plate, we dedicate that collection to some partner organization that we wish to support. So your contributions today will go to resources, and in a moment, Mary Humphreys will come up and tell us a little bit about what they do. If you wish your contribution today to go to Buff, please make a note on the envelope in the pew or in the memo line of your check. Walt will show those of you on Zoom how to contribute. And I'd like to welcome Mary Humphreys from Resources to tell us a little bit about what they do. Mary, please come up.
Good morning, everybody. It is a real pleasure to be here, and I just want to acknowledge your beautiful words, Madeline. They were kind of a perfect introduction to what I have to say today about Resources. I am the development director there. I've worked at Resources now for 7 years. I've been working in the nonprofit environmental sector for about 32 years now, so you can gauge my age based on that. I am very fortunate to be able to work at that organization because I'm very passionate about protecting the natural world. We are facing climate change, and we need to do everything that we can in order to be able to continue to prosper. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this work is because I do have wonder and awe, as does Madeline, when I'm in nature. It's the place I retreat to when the world gets too busy or there's too much chaos. There's too many things that are depressing, and I find solace and I find peace when I go into the natural world. The second reason I do this work, and I think this may be a sentiment shared by many of you, is because I have a son and a daughter and 3 beautiful grandchildren ages 16, 14, and 10, and I want to be able to pass on this beautiful natural legacy to them and to make sure that they too have the opportunity to thrive in the decades to come. So that's a little bit about me. Now on to Resources, which is what I'm here to talk about. How many of you are familiar with the organization? Raise your hands. I thought as much. So I want to thank all of you for your support of the organization. Some of you I know are giving generously with gifts. Others are volunteering their time, which we greatly appreciate. It makes everything stronger and more successful. So thank you for that. And I also want to thank the Environment and Social Justice Committee for inviting me here to talk today. Our mission at Resources is pretty straightforward. We work to protect the health of the Northwest people, to build sustainable communities, and to protect the Salish Sea ecosystem. And we do that through a number of different avenues. We do policy making, so we attend public hearings and provide testimony. We do it through public education. We do that also environmental education in the classroom. We take bold actions. We stand up to big corporations and make sure that our natural world is protected. And we do all this based on science, something that I think our previous president was not aware of. In any event, that is what we do. And I'm just now going to go back a little bit because Resources is celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. And I think this is a story that typifies what the people of Bellingham are capable of doing. So back in 1982, and maybe this will be a history lesson for you, Madeline, we began with an intrepid group of people who wanted to do something that was wild and crazy at the time. They were worried about all these products that were popping up on the shelves and the massive waste that it was creating. And so they decided that they wanted to do curbside recycling, and that volunteers would go around and collect the recyclables, and then they would deliver them to the places where they ought to be. And this was such a popular program that eventually what happened was that it became the nation's largest volunteer-run recycling program. So I think we should all be proud of that, and I don't know if there's anybody in the room who maybe have been part of that gang, but that's how Resources started. And then from that grew the Restore, and some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the Restore, which is Resources' largest program. And we were up on Meridian Street when we started near the Whatcom Community College. And then from there, we started to do programs like protecting the Salish Sea ecosystem, talking about climate change to kids in classrooms from ages kindergarten through to grade 12. We also have worked on blocking fossil fuel expansion projects at the refineries, both here in Whatcom County, and now we're going to move into Skagit County. Some of you may be familiar that we had a big win last year where we were able to, with the help of the county council, prohibit any new wharves or piers or refineries or infrastructure projects out at Cherry Point. So, yeah, and I'm sure some of you in this room were participating in that and providing testimony, so I thank you again. All right, I'm getting the signal that I need to stop. So you can see I'm very passionate. I love this work. And I just want to say I'm going to stay for coffee hour. I invite you to come chat with me. There are ways in which you can get yourself involved with Resources beyond giving, which of course we greatly appreciate. So thank you again for letting me speak today about Resources.
Thank you so much, Mary. I'm going to sing while you're doing that process of giving to Resources, a song that I really just wanted to sing. But you can also think about the awe as part of this song. Thank you, Melanie. The most beautiful sound I've ever heard. Maria, 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 Maria. All the beautiful sounds in the world in a single word. Maria, 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 Maria. Maria, Maria, Maria. I've just met a girl named Maria, and suddenly that name will never be the same to me. Maria, I've just kissed a girl named Maria, and suddenly I found how wonderful a sound can be. Maria, say it loud and there's music playing. Say it soft and it's almost like praying. Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria. Say it's soft and it's almost like praying. Maria, I'll never stop saying Maria. The most beautiful sound I ever heard. Yes, I'll introduce us. Yes. Please join me in singing number 1007 in the Blue Book. There's a river flowing in my soul. Thank you so much, Melanie. Thank you to the Buff Choir for singing. Thank you all for being here. May you all breathe freely and enjoy the wonder and pleasure of being a soulful body. Thank you so much. And now for circle round, and thank you, Jeff, for being celebrant. Circle round for freedom.
Circle Okay, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I
Okay.
can hear you,
Oh, whoops.
but I don't see you.
No, I
Where
was
are
just doing
you?
a sound check with Walt for the
Thank you, sound
congregational
check.
meeting.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Well, good. This is better than the service. It was hard to hear the service.
okay. All right, I'll see you all at the meeting in a half an hour.
Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.